Alright, now we're back to multiple choice questions. The first question says, the graph below shows how the rate of photosynthesis in a plant changes as light intensity increases. This graph includes points that are labeled P, Q, and R. Now we are given a few statements to consider. Statement 1 says, light intensity is the only factor that limits photosynthesis. Statement 2 says, between points P and Q, light intensity is the limiting factor for photosynthesis. And statement 3 says, between points Q and R, some other factor is limiting the rate and not light. Now the question asks, which of these statements are correct? So the correct answer here is option C. Statement 1 is incorrect because light is not always the only limiting factor. Other things like carbon dioxide concentration or temperature can also limit photosynthesis. However, statement 2 is correct as in the graph, light limits the rate between P and Q, while statement 3 is correct because beyond Q, another factor becomes limiting. Next question. You are shown a diagram of a cross-section of a leaf, and 3 parts are labeled 1, 2, and 3. The question asks, what is the main function of each of these labeled regions? Now these are very easy to identify. Region 1 is the vascular bundle, which is responsible for transport. Region 2 is the spongy mesophyll, which contains air spaces and helps in gaseous exchange. Region 3 is the palisade layer, which is the main site for photosynthesis. So based on these functions, the correct answer here is again option C. Moving on to the next question. Here, you are shown a section of a dicotyledonous leaf, with parts labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The question asks, which of these labeled cells actually carry out photosynthesis? Once again, the correct answer is option C, because parts 2, 3, and 4 contain chloroplasts and are therefore capable of photosynthesis. And, now to the next one. This question is about minerals that plants need. It asks, which of the following rows correctly explains why plants need magnesium and nitrate ions? We know that magnesium ions are needed to make chlorophyll, and nitrate ions are needed to make amino acids. So the correct answer here is option D. Next, we have another theory-based question. This one shows a diagram of the lower part of a transpiring leaf and asks us to identify cell B. From the diagram, we can tell that cell B is a spongy mesophyll cell. Then the question continues. It states that leaves from different plant species transpire at different rates, even under the same environmental conditions. We're asked to suggest and explain structural differences on the lower surface of the leaves that might cause this variation. Now, even though this part links to Chapter 7, which we'll study later, we'll still go through it here because it gives us useful insights into leaf structure. So, how do structural differences affect transpiration? Leaves from different species may have structural differences that affect transpiration. A larger surface area increases evaporation, while a thicker cuticle reduces it by acting as a barrier. More or larger stomata allow greater water loss, increasing transpiration. Features like sunken stomata, curled leaves, ridged surfaces, or leaf hairs trap moisture and increase humidity around stomata, reducing the rate of transpiration. Then this question says, the diagram shows a cross-section through a leaf when viewed using a light microscope. The diagram shows a leaf cross-section with labels A and B. It asks, state the term used to describe a group of cells, such as those in part A or part B of the leaf cross-section. We know that A is the palisade layer and B is the spongy layer, and both together make up the mesophyll, so we will simply write mesophyll tissue. And, here's another MCQ. This time, the diagram shows cells from a plant leaf, and the question is, which structure contains a high concentration of magnesium? Now, we know that magnesium is a key component of chlorophyll. So, the more chlorophyll a cell has, the more magnesium it will contain. Chloroplasts are most abundant in palisade cells, since that's where most photosynthesis happens. Therefore, structure B, which represents the palisade cells, contains more magnesium, making B the correct answer. Then in the next question, they tell us, a small mountain lake has aquatic plants growing underwater on the lake bed. Shortly after heavy rainfall, the mud at the bottom gets stirred up and the water level rises. And then, they ask, why does this cause the rate of photosynthesis in these plants to decrease? Out of all the given options, the correct answer is option C, lower light intensity. When the mud is stirred up, it makes the water cloudy. Combined with the rise in water level, less light is able to reach the plants at the bottom, so the rate of photosynthesis drops due to reduced light availability, which is a limiting factor. Next, the question says, some plants have large leaves and are growing well, but the leaves are turning yellow. Which factor is likely causing this problem? The correct answer is option A, lack of magnesium in the soil. Magnesium is essential for making chlorophyll, the green pigment in leaves. If the plant doesn't get enough magnesium, chlorophyll production decreases, causing the leaves to turn yellow, a condition known as chlorosis. The diagram shows cells from a plant leaf, and the question is, which structure contains a high concentration of magnesium? Now, we know that magnesium is a key component of chlorophyll. So, the more chlorophyll a cell has, the more magnesium it will contain. Chloroplasts are most abundant in palisade cells, since that's where most photosynthesis happens. Therefore, structure B, which represents the palisade cells, contains more magnesium, making B the correct answer. Looks like the same question has come up again. It says, a small mountain lake has aquatic plants growing underwater on the lake bed. Shortly after heavy rainfall, the mud on the lake bed gets stirred up and the water level rises. Why does this cause the rate of photosynthesis in these plants to decrease? We already know the correct answer is option C, lower light intensity, since the muddy water and increased depth block sunlight from reaching the plants. Then the question gives a graph showing how the yield of a wheat crop changes with different amounts of nitrate fertilizer added. Graph shows yield on the y-axis and amount of nitrate fertilizer on the x-axis. It asks, what can be concluded from the graph? The correct answer is option D, as, at first, increasing the amount of nitrate fertilizer leads to a higher yield because nitrates help with protein production and plant growth. But after a certain point, the graph flattens, showing that adding more nitrate no longer results in much increase in yield. This means another factor has become limiting. Alright, then we have another theory-based question. The question says, a plant species lives in ponds. The diagrams show the whole plant and a section through one of its leaves. So here, you can see the diagram. The plant has leaves that float on the surface of the water, and there's also a cross-section of the leaf shown. Then it further says, the leaves are adapted to float on the surface of the water. Suggest one advantage to the plant of the leaves floating on the surface of water. So for this, we'll write, leaves floating on the surface of the water can absorb more light and carbon dioxide from the air, which are needed for photosynthesis. Next, they ask us to name the parts of the leaf labeled A and B. So here, A is the stoma, and B is the airspace. Then the final part says, with reference to parts A and B, describe and explain how the structure of the leaf is adapted to a pond environment. And the answer to this is, the stomata are on the upper surface of the leaf, which allows for gaseous exchange with the air since the lower surface is in contact with water. This enables carbon dioxide to enter for photosynthesis. The leaf also contains large air spaces, which help it to float by making it less dense and increasing buoyancy. Now again, we have a paper 1 question. It says, the rate of nitrate ion absorption by a root hair cell was measured at different soil nitrate concentrations. At X, the concentration of nitrate in the soil is the same as in the cell. Which graph shows how the rate of absorption varies with nitrate concentration in the soil? They've given us 4 different graphs showing nitrate absorption versus soil nitrate concentration. So, which option is correct? The correct answer is option A. The rate of absorption increases as the nitrate concentration increases, but when it reaches point X, where the concentrations are equal, there's no net movement by diffusion. Further absorption after that point must involve active transport. Next question says, a plant has leaves with both green and white areas. One of its leaves is partly covered with aluminium foil which blocks light. There's a diagram showing a leaf with green and white parts, partly covered with aluminium foil. Leaf discs X, Y, and Z are taken from different areas. Then it continues, the plant is then placed under a lamp for 24 hours. After this time, discs are cut from the areas of the leaf shown, and tested with iodine solution. And they ask, which leaf discs will give a blue-black color when tested with iodine solution? The correct answer is option D, Y only. Only the green areas of the leaf can carry out photosynthesis, since they contain chlorophyll. Also, the area must be exposed to light, since light is needed to make starch. So, disc Y, from a green, uncovered area, gives the blue-black result with iodine, showing starch was made there. Then, another question says, a gardener grows tomato plants in pots. To begin with, the plants produce green leaves and grow quickly. Then, after a few weeks, the leaves turn yellow, and they ask, which type of water can the gardener use on the plants to make the leaves turn green again? Now, they've added a bit of drama by showing 4 watering cans labeled A, B, C, and D, each with a different type of water. Water with fertilizer containing magnesium. Distilled water, rainwater, water with fertilizer containing nitrate. So, which one will help? The correct answer is option A, water with fertilizer containing magnesium. Magnesium is essential for chlorophyll formation. When plants lack magnesium, their leaves turn yellow, a condition called chlorosis. So adding magnesium helps the plant make chlorophyll again, and the leaves turn green. And finally, a repeated question from previous papers. It says, the rate of nitrate ion absorption by a root hair cell was measured at different soil nitrate concentrations. At X, the concentration of nitrate in the soil is the same as in the cell. They again ask, which graph shows how the rate of absorption varies with nitrate concentration in the soil? As we've already discussed, graph A is the correct answer. And with that, we've reached the end of Chapter 6, Plant Nutrition. I really hope these videos have helped you in your exam preparation and made the concepts clearer. If you found them useful and enjoyed learning with me, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really supports the work I do and keeps more content coming your way. There's lots more ahead, so let's keep growing and learning together. Stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next video. And, thank you for watching.